Hello people, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, we'll be talking about anime again. So, this might as well be an anime channel now. Video games? I don't know the meaning of that. But anyways, there's been some very upsetting news recently, and it's the fact that Funimation has bought Crunchyroll. That means that Funimation owns the entirety of anime streaming in Australia. Sure, we still have stuff like Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, but those are not exclusive anime streaming sites, so their anime libraries are pretty limited, and you wouldn't be subscribing to them just for their anime. Of course, in the US, you still have High Dive, so it's not too bad over there. You still have that one streaming service left, but in Australia, we basically only have Anime Lab. But the thing is, Anime Lab is owned by Funimation as well. This was a recent thing, by the way. Anime Lab used to be its own thing, but now Funimation is its parent company. So in Australia, we have only three streaming services: Funimation, Anime Lab, and Crunchyroll. And earlier this year, Funimation merged with Anime Lab, so now Funimation is Anime Lab's parent company. And now we've gotten to a point where Funimation is going to buy Crunchyroll, which means that they own the entirety of anime streaming in Australia, except for stuff like Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, where they host some anime, and Netflix is making original anime, but their main purpose is not anime. And I wouldn't actually have an issue with this if Funimation was a good company, but it isn't, and I'm pretty sure they're going to screw up, because they actually did screw up when merging with Anime Lab this year. So when the Funimation and Anime Lab merger happened, they announced that they were going to stop streaming to Australia, which is fine. Theoretically, having just one streaming service to view anime is really good. It's a lot better for the consumer to pay for one subscription rather than two. Except, the merger was handled really terribly. So first of all, let's just talk about the actual content that moved over to Anime Lab. So firstly, a big fat disclaimer. I don't know how this worked for other shows, but I'm just going to talk about Spice and Wolf specifically, because I've noticed that they kind of did something really weird here. So, I'm not sure if this was part of the Anime Lab and Funimation merger or not, but I did notice earlier this year that Spice and Wolf was added to Anime Lab. So I'm gonna guess that was part of the merger, because Funimation was streaming Spice and Wolf before. So, when they added Spice and Wolf to Anime Lab, they only added the second season, with the first season still being streamed on Funimation. But now, a few months later, they only have the first episode of the first season on Funimation, and they have the entirety of the second season on Anime Lab, which means that you can only watch one episode of the first season on Funimation, then you'll probably have to buy the rest of them on iTunes, then you can come to Anime Lab to watch the second season, which is very odd. Especially after the fact that they said that they would stop streaming to Australia. Funimation is still up in Australia. You can still watch things, and stuff are still region locked specifically for Australia as well. So Cowboy Bebop will not be on Funimation in Australia, but a bunch of other shows will be. So that there is still Australian specific region locking happening. So they're specifically region locking shows for Australia, yet the plan was to actually stop streaming in Australia. Although somehow they actually have stopped streaming in Australia through this really odd method, which is by locking any Australian Funimation account. So if you've made a Funimation account, and when you make your account, they actually track where you are. So when I made my account, they tracked that I was in Australia. So when I log into it, the Funimation website just stops working. It just decides, nope. But, again, that's weird because the website already tracks your location to figure out what shows you're allowed to see. So why does the website only stop working when you're logged in? I genuinely don't get it. What's the logic behind this? Not only is that kind of inconvenient and stupid and annoying, but you can own digital content on Funimation, which means that you don't have access to that content anymore. And as far as I know, Funimation didn't transfer your digital content from Funimation to Anime Lab. They just locked you out of your account so you can't view the content anymore. Now, personally, I didn't have any digital content on Funimation, but I did buy the Spice and Wolf Blu-ray a little earlier this year, and it came with a digital code to claim on Funimation. So obviously, I couldn't actually log into Funimation and claim the code, so that was incredibly frustrating for me. And I emailed Anime Lab and I emailed Funimation. They just told me there was no way to claim the code. I just couldn't use it. Luckily, I did find a workaround for this. I just created an account using a VPN, so they thought I was in America. But who knows how long they'll last. Actually, that's just another flaw in how they're doing things. As long as the account is created outside of Australia, you can use it in Australia. Like, I can log into the American account I made without the VPN as long as I created it with a VPN on. I literally do not get that. So if you move from, like, America to Australia, you still have access to Funimation. Even though, again, the plan was to stop streaming Funimation to Australia. And again, the website is constantly tracking your location to know what content they can share with you, so why don't they just remove all the content or like block you out from the website entirely? Why do you have to log in with your account that doesn't even accurately describe your location? I could have made an Australian account and moved to America, but they won't give me access because the account was created in Australia. It literally makes no sense. And of course, you've also heard the stories about, their terrible physical releases and their, terrible dubbing and how they force political messages into dubs. So yeah, generally, I just do not have a positive outlook on Funimation, and I do not want them to own the entirety of the anime streaming industry in Australia. It's funny how people are saying that Funimation needs competition as an incentive to improve, but honestly, Funimation has always been terrible, and they've had so many chances to improve. They've had people, shouting at them to improve, but they just never have. So I don't think them buying Crunchyroll will affect that in any way. I think like a company like maybe Sentai need to actually become bigger than Funimation to actually incentivize them to improve and be that competition. Because Funimation is the biggest in dubbing and home releases. So that's probably why their streaming service is so terrible, because they just can't bother with competing against Crunchyroll because they're already doing really well with home releases and dubbing. And now they've gotten so big that they basically own all the streaming services in Australia. And as I've already explained, Funimation is a bad company. It's not good at all. So when a bad company owns all the anime exclusive streaming sites in Australia, that gets me worried. Now, Crunchyroll isn't a saint either, because I heard they only pay their subtitlers $80 per episode, so that's like a disgustingly low amount of money. As far as I know, Anime Lab isn't bad at all, but all they do is publish stuff over here, so they don't get involved in the subtitles or dubs or anything. But their video player is terrible. The subtitles are part of the video, so you can't turn them off or anything, and when you're watching something in dub, again, because the subtitles are part of the video, it's a gamble on whether on-screen text will be translated or not. I remember there was also a similar issue with Netflix. I was watching Brand New Animal on Netflix, and I was watching it in dub, and all the on-screen text was not translated unless I turned on the subtitles. They fixed that, by the way, so it's all good now, but that's only because the subtitles in the video were separate entities, so they could do that. With Anime Lab, I was watching Gurren Lagann in dub, and there was a lot of text on screen, and I just couldn't read it because there was no subtitle translations. And because subtitles are part of videos, I can't just temporarily turn on the subtitles, or they can't just add in the subtitles later on when they realize, oh, this is an issue like Netflix did. They could, however, replace the video entirely, but I guess they're too lazy to do that. I also noticed that with Gurren Lagann, the subtitles were really ugly, so yeah, it probably wouldn't have been too pleasant to watch in sub either. Okay, so now here's the problem. Crunchyroll has a pretty okay player. It's pretty much like Netflix and has a lot of flexibility. The only problem is that sometimes it just starts buffering for no reason and the video loads really slowly, even though my internet is completely fine. But other than that, it's a good player. But if Funimation does the same thing they did with Anime Lab, they could just stop streaming Crunchyroll in Australia and just move all of Crunchyroll's content onto Anime Lab and do a really sloppy job of it, and I would have to use Anime Lab's bad player. So yeah, overall, Funimation is a bad company. They handled the merger with Anime Lab really terribly. So I am kind of worried with how they're going to handle the merger with Crunchyroll, or how they're going to handle owning Crunchyroll, I guess. But yeah, that's just my little rant about Funimation and how they're buying Crunchyroll and how they basically already screwed up in Australia. But if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, because I might be doing some more discussion-esque videos like this in the future. And who knows, maybe I'll be doing some anime reviews in the future as well. I know, actually, I am doing some anime reviews in the future. They have been planned.